We'll begin with Nancy McArthur.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nancy McArthur, and I want to thank ATEC for hosting this event and the League of Women Voters, and all of you for coming out. It's a wonderful thing to be involved in civic activities, and it's good to see all of you here tonight. I'll tell you a little bit about me, my bio. I live in the city of Chardon, where I've lived the past 18 years, and I'm also the vice mayor there. I've been on city council for 2 terms, where I've served in the legislative, finance, and audit committees, and I've chaired all of those committees as well. I think I basically sat on just about every committee that we have. In my tenure there, we have done a great deal to turn things around in our city. One of the first things that I did when I came onto city council was to institute a performance audit, and we were able to identify about $500,000 of money in services that we were able to save taxes with that money. So those are being implemented now. Most of them have been implemented, and it's really created a great sense for our city that we're doing and managing things very well. In addition, just this year we were awarded a AAA rating through our S&P rating, and we have the distinction of being one of the top cities in the state of Ohio having that rating. Only 10% of cities have that rating. In addition, we created a revitalization district by talking to some of the businesses in the area. They were able to expand their businesses, and we had new businesses come in because of that legislation. So we've been able to work very closely together to get some great things done. My main reason for getting involved in local government was to bring in new businesses and to create a really strong tax base for our community. And we have been able to do that through some very great fiscal sound policies, reducing our regulations for our businesses, and also providing some great services for our residents there. In addition, I've been working in business for over 30 years myself. I'm a small business banker with Key Bank in Chardon, and I've worked in the finance area for a while, and I've also worked in marketing and human resources and a lot of other industries. I have a bachelor's degree from Cleveland State University in communications, and I minored in business. My husband's family owns a small business in Euclid, Ohio. They employ about 50 people, and it's a paint manufacturing company. We have 2 children, Kelly, who is a student at Ohio University. She's studying linguistics. She is married, and a son still at home, 16, and he is doing post-secondary work at Lakeland Community College. I mainly am focusing on trying to create the right environment for this district. The first thing that I suggest that we do is to clean up the crime and drug problem, and I have a 3-point plan to do that. First, by talking to, excuse me.
Thank you. Mr. Patterson.
Thank you. I'm John Patterson, and I've served as your state representative for the last 2 years. And I was born in the district. I was raised in the district. In fact, the two women in my life are here, my wife of 31 years and my mother of 58 years, so you can do the math on that one. I married in the district. We raised our family here and retired from here. Just a little bit of what a smidgen of what I've been working on in the last 2 years. I believe that in addition to supporting the businesses we already have, that we have to sustain and encourage that which cannot be outsourced. And that would be tourism industry, in viticulture in particular, and our agricultural industry. Those cannot leave this district. And I think it's important that we develop that, because we all know how many businesses and industries have left. So what have I done in the last 2 years to help that? Briefly, in the Conneaut area, was able to work diligently to restore staffing at the Travel Information Center to draw tourists into Conneaut, and that's critically important to their economy. In Ashtabula, I worked with various partners to get the Ashtabula River dredged so that we can bring in more outside dollars in the river, because every boat that is launched brings in $72 of local revenue, critically important. In Geneva area, the Geneva on the Lake the corridor there this summer that was, and some of you tried to drive that perhaps, Lake Road that was reconstructed. I worked diligently with ODOT to make sure that there weren't transportation snafus because tourism is so important to Geneva on the Lake, and we worked on that throughout the spring. In Geauga County, it was important to get the maple syrup bill passed so that we can have awareness of that industry. According to the maple producers, 80% of the raw sap that we produce is shipped out of the district. It actually goes to Vermont, and it comes back, and we buy it. I'd like to close those loopholes. Now, recently, and another two things real quick. I founded the Education Funding Caucus amongst my colleagues. There's 21 members, 11 Democrats, 10 Republicans. We're having those difficult discussions about education funding, and the discussions have to come first before real legislation can follow. And secondly, recently the CAUV issue has bubbled up. I'm leading a task force to study that issue. We met for the third time just yesterday. If any of you are interested, we're going to be meeting again November 10th, 9 o'clock at the OSU Extension. This is critically important because it affects our agricultural industry terribly. Some of those individuals are going to see their taxes raised 300%. So there has to be some overall tax. We have to address the tax issue in the state of Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you. How would you address the issue of the water quality and algae blooms in Lake Erie? Ms. McArthur.
How would I address it? Yeah, it was a problem this past year over in Toledo. You know, it's a problem that unfortunately should have been, you know, there should have been a little more foresight, I think, in some of the pollution that was causing that. You know, I don't know that it's totally preventable. I think that there are some things that could have been done to prevent it, and we need to learn from that experience and make sure that it doesn't continue to occur. I don't think it's a crisis, and I think that we need to keep a watch on our water and our clean water and do what we can to prevent that from happening in the future.
Mr. Patterson.
Thank you. I don't know if you are aware of this, but I am a member of the Great Lakes Caucus, which involves not only legislators from the United States, but from Canada. Also, I'm a member of the Lake Erie Caucus. Very much concerned about water quality because it is an issue here. I'm a co-sponsor of a bill that would force our Ohio EPA to develop standards for microsighting testing. Prior to August 14th, there was no such standard at all. And the water folks out in the Western Basin were using standards set forth by World Health Organization. We hadn't in Ohio, so I want to get that established first so we know what we're dealing with. Also, as a member of Ag Committee, we were able to pass SB 150, which begins to address the issue of agricultural runoff, and there were some problems. But my friends, the issue is deeper than that. There are municipal sewer systems that commingle stormwater drainage and sewer drainage, and when we have epic rains, those are commingled, and we have to fix the infrastructure.
Thank you. There is a movement on the horizon to integrate the adults and children now being served by the Board of Developmental Disabilities into public schools and the mainstream workforce. If such a proposal were to become law, it would bring the closure of Happy Hearts School and Ashcraft Industries. What is your position on this issue? Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, and I am aware of that issue, and I've been out to Happy Hearts recently, and we are working to schedule a phone interview with the officials, a phone conference with officials from the state of Ohio to get to the bottom of that issue. And I know there's petitions circulating concerning that to various state officials. I'm very concerned about that because I've supported Happy Hearts in this way. Those are special kids, and they come from special homes, and they need special opportunities. I've toured Happy Hearts, and some of the students I've known by being a resident here. They're so proud of what they do. We have to continue to afford them that opportunity because it brings worth to their life. All of us are looking for worth in our life, and I support what they've done out there for all these many years, and I'll continue to fight for them.
Ms. McArthur.
I haven't been aware of the issue, but it sounds to me like it's probably a funding issue. Is that correct? That they're being integrated into the schools. You know, I think that special schools like that do need to be supported. I don't have any special solutions to bringing financing to these types of things, but I think that we need to make sure that everyone's getting the proper education that they need, and to be streaming some of these people into public classrooms probably doesn't do either of those groups a service. So if there's some way to increase the funding, I think it should be done, and I think that they probably deserve to keep that school open.
What is your position on fracking, Ms. McArthur?
It's actually called fracturing, I believe is the correct word. You know, I don't think that there's tons of fracking going on in this part of the country. There are serious fracking happening in other parts of Ohio, particularly down in the Mahoning Valley. It has been done very safely in other parts of the world. And I haven't seen any real tremendous issues that haven't been dealt with. I think the state of Ohio is keeping a close watch on it. So I am not anti-fracking per se. I think that we need to have checks and balances, and I think it's being watched very carefully. So that's my position.
Mr. Patterson.
You've asked me a question. I want to ask all of you a question. How many of you walked here this evening? Yeah. Kind of it. I could have. My point is, we are dependent upon energy, and this has international overtones too. And we have been since 1948, but that's changed recently, importing more than we've exported oil. But that's changed, and in some ways, it has caused a negative drain on our economy. My point is, we have to balance appropriate energy development with appropriate environmental protection, especially in our district. And those of you from Conneaut, I know about the injection well up there. It's not on the drawing board now, but I'm working with other members of the Agricultural Committee to ensure, because we sit so close to the lake, that precious resource, that the injection wells are as safe as they can be. And if you're interested, I could get into that conversation in greater detail, but I can't because I'm out of time. Balance.
There was a question about the CAUV taxes and if legislation was going to be submitted to that. You had addressed it earlier, Mr. Patterson, but would you want to comment more on that?
Yes, just yesterday we had a teleconference with the chairman of the Ways and Means and a fellow representative who is working closely with Representative McLean to do just that. We had an in-depth discussion, and I think there were some of you who might have been at that meeting yesterday. It's a very complex issue. What really needs to happen in an ideal world is to freeze or to have a moratorium on the tax increase that's going to go into effect. And admittedly, I don't know if in lame duck session we'll be able to move that fast. In the long run, the CAU formula, which was instituted in the 1970s, worked then, but it is predicated upon a national economy. Those of you who are engaged in agriculture know we're dealing with an international economy now, and it's changed everything. One quick note here, Brazil is going to produce more soybeans this year than the United States. It changes everything, so we have to address it.
Ms. McArthur.
Yeah, you know, I found out about this right before one of our county fairs. Someone approached me from Ashtabula County, and it's come up in many conversations with farmers that I've spoken with. I think it is a very egregious increase in taxes. You know, if I'm elected, I'm going to go down there and try to stop it from happening at the levels that it is. It's not affordable. It's going to put people out of business, and it doesn't make sense. So I would be in favor of stopping it, freezing it, reducing it, all of the above.
Thank you. What would you say are the 3 most important books you have read to develop your legislative or legal bent? Ms. McArthur.
Books that I've read to develop my legislative or legal bent. Wow. Read a lot of the ORC. I don't know if that's, technically it is a published book. You know, I would say the Constitution. of the United States, studied it well, and the Constitution of the state of Ohio.
Mr. Patterson.
That's an interesting question. I've read a lot of books, and I'm trying to zero in on a few that have made a difference. One is The 7 Essential Ingredients of a Successful Person. Stephen Covey wrote it a few years ago. It's about building team, and I think that's critically important. But in addition to that, Doris Kearns Goodwin is a favorite author of mine, and so is David McCulloch, historians who have brought to life. In fact, I met Doris Kearns Goodwin this summer, and she spends time with her dead men, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt. How many of you saw the Ken Burns special? Fascinating stuff. My point is, I'm reading 2 books on Theodore Roosevelt now, one by her, one by Edmund Morris, and there's a lot that we can take from literature in trying to apply to our current times things that have done in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates for State Representative, 99th District, Nancy McArthur and John Patterson. Thank you. We're going to move along to the Common Pleas Court.